owinjore yud weche manyien mago mag Machiegni Pacho. Wechego mago mowuok achiel kachiel e mesawa mano mar kawo weche manyien. Ageno ni in kare kamoro amora mano mabende irange weche maket koda magi kendo mano mabende iluwe chenro mago mopogore opogore mago mabende wang' jowi mar kala chwalo ni achiel kachiel. Mokwongo kawo wechegi kaka ne wamiyo gi pek odiochieng' mano ma kawuono. Weg nyamruko matingo jowuoth e pacho kayo chungo ng'anyo margi mano mabende ne gichako ayanga odiochieng' mano manyoro.
We want to urge our members wherever they are to go back to work. We've come up with something whereby next week I think there'll be something coming up.
Jokedne ratich oganda mago ma pacho kayo molo itesendo bila mano malang'ata e sondo mar mondo mi owe thuolo OCS mano matesendo bila ma Nairobi Central.
So obviously, if at all he has violated any police code of conduct, then that becomes a disciplinary issue. We are surprised that he is being arrested and tried and being dragged through the criminal justice system.
MCS mago mabende wuok e county mano ma Kisumu wacho ni ok gimor kod weche moko mago mag achaya mago mabende ne owachi kod gavana mano ma county ma Siaya James Orengo ka ogeto godo gavana ma county ma Homa Bay Mikai Gladys Wanga.
Awacho ni gavana Orengo nyaka sani koro luor mine. Weche mano wacho kuom gavana Gladys Wanga are unpalatable. Nyako luor mine, nyako luor Wanga.
Bed koda nyaka giko janeno mar Kala TV nyinga Nelly Achieng ndine jaloko mara Bella Achieng. Wachako gi wechego mago mabende timore piny owacho mano mamalo. Kama bende wayudo kanyo ni jalup Kenya mano ma pacho kae mano moluo jalup jatend piny Kenya Kithure Kindiki odiochieng' mano ma kawuono ne otiyo kod thuolo mare mano mar goyo erokamano ne jokanyono duto te mago mabende tiyo e sekta mano mar wuoth kuom ne kawo okang' mano mar chungo kanyo ng'anyo margi mago mabende gisebedo ka gibago e pacho kae chakre odiochieng' mano manyoro. Weche maket koda magi ne owacho seche mano mabende ne ochopo e nyasi mano mar ik mar jaduong' Eshbon Thuku e kaunti mano ma Nyandarua. E kinde limbe kata nyasi maket koda mano tene kod jotelo mago mopogore opogore kanyo mabende oting'o Moses Wetangula mabende ne otiyo kod thuolo maket koda mano mar kwayo ganda jo Kenya duto te mondo migi to ich wang'a kendo mar mondo migi ne ni dongruok kende ema obedo e pacho ka.
Hivi karibuni tulipunguza ile kodi ambayo tulikuwa tunatoza katika mambo ya mafuta ikatoka 16% ikakuja 8%. Vile vile tukaweka in the last 2 months shillings in the last 2 months, lakini bado haitoshi. Na ndio umeona jana bei ya dizeli, na mimi nashukuru washikadau wote katika sekta hii kwa sababu wamekuja katika mambo ya mazungumzo. Jana usiku mawaziri wetu tulikuwa tumewaambia waketi na washikadau, waziri wa kawi, waziri wa uchukuzi, waziri wa hazina ya kitaifa. Hiyo ndio ilisababisha ile 10 shillings ambayo tulipunguza jana. Na mimi nashukuru Mungu kwa sababu leo mchana hayo mazungumzo vile yanaendelea. Wale ambao walikuwa wameitisha mgomo wa magari wamesema ya kwamba watasimamisha kwa muda wa siku kadhaa ili kupatia serikali nafasi ya kuendelea na mazungumzo na kuleta suluhu ambaye ni suluhu ambaye sisi sote tunatafuta.
Nataka kuwaomba tuteremushe siasa ya hasira, tupendane. Jamii yenu ina bahati kubwa, umetupatia marais watatu katika nchi ya Kenya. Tunasema haleluya. Mimi nilikuwa mwandani wa Rais Kibaki. Worked with him for 10 years. I was his foreign minister. Kila wakati tukitembea, tukifika kwa marais huko nje, anawaambia huyu my foreign minister anajua kila kitu, yeye ndiye ataongea na nyinyi. na tulilinda ngome mpaka Rais Kibaki akatengeneza nchi yetu. Mimi nawaomba hii nchi tusiichezee, tuishike. Peace is very difficult to define, but it's very easy to notice its absence.
Yena mondo mi weche moko mago mabende otenore kod mano kama bende wedo kanyo ne weg nyambruko mago mabende tingo jowuothe pacho kae ne ong'ado kata ne ochopo e paro mano achiela mano mar chungo ng'anyo margi bang' yie timo twak gi piny owacho kendo loso weche mago mabende osebedo ka thagogi e thuolo mano mar juma achiel kochakore kawuono. E kinde romo mabende ne oyore kod jotelo mago mopogore kanyo mabende oting'o weg nyambruko go kaachiel kod jotelo ma oting'o moluor Wandai, moluor Murkomen, moluor Sakaja ka e kind jogo mamoko ne ging'ado mar mondo mi gibed kod twak kendo rango yorego mago mabende inyalo konyo godo sekta mano mar wuoth.
Karagacha. I'm the president of Matatu Owners Association. We want to urge our members wherever they are to go back to work. We've come up with something whereby next week I think there'll be something coming up. So we urge them to go back to work, and we want to thank the government. We are going to work very closely, and we've agreed to form a committee which is going to look into other issues related to the transport sector, mostly on PSV, because we've been having so many issues on insurance, we've been having issues on traffic matters, corruption. So we thank the minister. We are going to work very closely with this office to make sure that we enable the transport sector to grow. Thank you.
That indeed we have got a white smoke. We have had very, very candid deliberations with the leadership of the public sector transport operators since yesterday. Those deliberations have been concluded this morning, and I must confirm that they have been concluded successfully. As a matter of fact, due to the situation that currently obtains in the Middle East, and bearing in mind that Kenya remains a net importer of petroleum products, the government, conscious of the difficulties that the public continues to endure following the skyrocketing of petroleum product prices, has taken very, very deliberate measures. On the matter of subsidy alone, between last month and this month, those two pricing cycles, the government has applied some 13.9 billion shillings to manage the cost of these petroleum products.
Wadhi nyime janeno mar kalatvlive kama bende wayudo kanyo ni mane en jatend migao moluor Eliud Owalo odichieng' mano ma kawuono ne otwak kod jofwamb weche kendo ne ogolo pache ewi midhiero mano mar nengo mamalo mag modhi mano ma bende osebedo ka kelo wich bare pacho kae, gino ma bende osemiyo oganda jo Kenya obago ng'anyo kendo yorego mago mag wuoth orochore e pacho kae. Owalo noloso kanyo kod jofwamb weche kama bende ne owacho ni oganda jo Kenya kale midhiero maket kodama ka otenre kod yiero marach kaachiel kod yono mano ma bende ok ni kare ma osebed ka itayo godo piny Kenya. Ne oloso kama.
And decisive action must now be taken. If I may ask, how can a landlocked Uganda have cheaper diesel than Kenya when most of its fuel passes through Kenya? How can Tanzania and Ghana maintain significantly lower fuel prices than Kenya? And how do we rationalize the fact that despite global fuel price hikes exhibited by tensions in the Middle East, it is Kenya that continues to bear one of the heaviest burdens? It just doesn't make sense. So you cannot continue advancing the argument that the prevailing fuel prices is as a result of the war, because other countries are equally facing the consequences of the war. But their governments have come in as agents of necessity to rationalize the fuel prices through relevant and appropriate policy and structural interventions. That means there's something amiss with us. The truth, therefore, is simple, that Kenya fuel prices are no longer being driven purely by global oil prices. They are driven by overtaxation, failed or lopsided policy choices, non-competitive fuel import arrangements, and misplaced government priorities. No economy can grow when the cost of movement, the cost of production, and survival also becomes unbearable. In my view, the primary drivers behind the runaway fuel prices, one, of course, is the global oil prices, crude oil prices, the rising international crude oil prices, which is driven by geopolitical tensions, such as the Iran conflict and border instability in the Middle East. But it cannot be used as an excuse for failure to put in place the necessary interventions by government. The second cause of the current skyrocketing fuel prices, in my view, is the so-called government-to-government or G2G oil deal. The government-to-government fuel import arrangement, which was initially introduced to stabilize supply and lower prices, has failed to deliver meaningful relief to consumers.
Panin thuolo mano mar cholo na pachi ka imia kata igolo pachi kanyo kotenre kod weche mago manyien mag machiegni pacho mawakelo ni achiel kachiel gi kinde ni. Inyalo tudori kodwa kanyo e yor Facebook ka achiel kod YouTube. Weche go kata ote maket koda mago abiro bedo karango kata kayango gi achiel kachiel. Waluwo weche mago mamoko kama bende wayudo kanyo ni jod bura mano magema Elisha Odhiambo okwayo kanyo speaker od bura mano mamalo Moses Wetangula mar mondo mi otemo oluong kanyo bura mano ma apoya mano mar twak ewi osuru mano ma bende ichuogo ewi modhi mago ma pacho kae kata ma otisi kanyo ni VAT mar mondo mi otiek midhiero mano ma oganda jo Kenya osebedo kakalie.
Today the Matatu organization called for a strike. I think from where I sit, it was a wrong move for them to call for the strike. I think the Matatu Association should call on Parliament to engage Parliament, because it's Parliament that enacted those laws that increase taxes. So any parliamentarian talking otherwise about increase in fuel does not know the job he was employed to do, because they're the one who passed these laws. So I think ultimately Parliament must revisit the VAT and the various taxes that have compounded the fuel prices, so that they can review it for the country to have a breather. That is the only basis this crisis or imagined crisis will come to an end. The issue of fuel has to be addressed. It can only be addressed in peace, cannot be addressed in chaos. So I'm calling on fellow Kenyans, let us protect our country. Let us protect the businessmen out there. Let us protect our children. Let us allow our children to go to school so that their lives can move on. I know it's at a difficult part, but the ultimate call is on Parliament to relook at the laws that were enacted by Parliament, so that the taxes can be tampered with and give a breather to the majority of Kenyans going through a difficult moment.
Jokedne ratich oganda odichieng' mano makawuono ne omolo etesendo bila mano malang'ata mara mondo mi gisunda mondo mi owe thuolo kanyo OCS mano ma tesendo bila mano ma Central Nairobi mabende ne ondhi bang' ka bende ne oyangore kanyo ni ne oweyo kanyo thuolo ji kata achije moko 64 mane ondhi odichieng' mano manyoro ewi bago ng'anyo ka gikwedo nengo mano mamalo mag modhi kata mauta e pacho kae. Joked ratich oganda go ne owacho ni OCS Dishen Ongoya gibiro bedo ka gichung' kode e yore duto te kanyo mabende oting'o kanyo chulo ne bond rambun e kind yore mago mamoko mano mar neno ni okalie midhiero mano ma entiere nyaka gi sani.
Kabla waachilie alipewa nguvu na OCPD, akaambiwa waachilie hao watu kwa sababu hana hatia yote. Baada ya kuwaachilia watu kwenda nyumbani, jioni kulikuwa na press conference by Murkomen ambao ilisemekana kuna watu 300 ambao wameshikwa, lakini wale watu 300 hawakuwa kwa sababu walikuwa shaachiliwa. Sio ikasemekana kwamba lazima watu wengine walaumiwe. Na unajua kwamba jana watu walipigwa risasi wakaumizwa, so lazima watu tafutiwe makosa. OCS ni rafiki wa Wakenya. Ukiangalia hapa kuna Wakenya wengi sana. Hao Wakenya wote wamekuja kuunga mkono Bwana Dishon. Tunasema kwamba akienda kotini tutamtolea bond, tutampigania, na polisi wote Kenya mzima. Usifuate sheria ambayo si halali. You can disobey illegal orders and Kenyans will defend you. So we in solidarity with the OCS. We'll pay his legal fees, we'll support him, and if he's fired, Kenyans will hire him. So from today, he's ours. Si ni kweli? Huyo askari sasa ni wetu, si wa Murkomen ama Kanja, ni wetu. Na askari wote Kenya mzima, usipige wa Kenya. Wa Kenya wanawaunga polisi mikono, wapewe mshahara mzuri na wapache kuwa wa Kenya. That's why we're here in solidarity with Dishon.
So thank you very much. My name is Titus Mahanu. I am also an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Indeed, this morning we've been so surprised that an OCS exercising his constitutionally mandated powers to either decide for suspects to be arraigned in court or to be released. We understand and we all know the law. The OCS has those powers. The OCS is the officer commanding police station. He takes instructions from no one. He takes instructions from the law. So obviously, if at all he has violated any police code of conduct, then that becomes a disciplinary issue. We are surprised that he is being arrested and tried and being dragged through the criminal justice system. But one thing we want to assure Kenyans is that there is a plethora of lawyers, including myself, who have put themselves out there to represent any person who stands with the law, including this OCS. So we are telling the perpetrators of this injustice that we as lawyers, we are waiting and we are ready. And one thing we can also assure Kenyans is that we only have 14 months to go.
Don bura mano mar PNU sanito wokoko kendo koro gichayo piny owacho mano mamalo mabende giwacho ni osebedo ka odino itgi ne moko kuom midhiero mago mabende oganda jo Kenya kale e pacho kae. Weche maket koda magi ne giwacho kinde go mabende ne gintiere e gwenge mago mag Meru kocha kama bende ne giwacho ni ng'anyo mano mantiere pacho kae kata mane obagi e pacho kae ne okela mana ka otenore kod peka mano mar ngima.
But we find this constant raising of taxes on every item in the country by this government totally unacceptable, insensitive, and reckless, to say the least. We have a government that is totally out of touch with the reality that the Kenyan people are facing. Totally out of touch. That's why you see them traveling. When the country is in a crisis, you are busy traveling to other countries. You have a government that even wants to set up projects in other countries, announcing them. So it's a clueless government. And in fact, what we are afraid of is the country may go into a bigger crisis before the next election, because we intend to get them out in the coming elections. We hope that the country can stick together, because this government cannot keep anything together. When you see a government where every strategic asset is being sold, being mortgaged, even fuel or levy that was repairing roads was utilized to borrow loans, then debts that have been accumulated have never been repaid, taxes are going down, businesses are closing, and it has an audacity to increase fuel in that kind of a situation, then you really don't, you don't have a government worth the name. And that's why we are saying we hope those negotiations will bear fruit and the prices will be brought down to manageable levels. And therefore, that's why we have decided to make this announcement that we are postponing the meetings for 2 weeks to give those discussions time. And we hope those discussions are not gimmicks to buy time for this government. And I'm sure you know that this thing called G2G is basically a cartel buying fuel from somewhere in the name of a government and bring it to Kenya at determined prices where they are making huge sums of money. In fact, we have information that in the current arrangement, before the additional prices they increased, the information we have is that that cartel has been making 19 billion every month from that G2G arrangement.
Achiel kachiel nyaka kaunti mano Siaya kama bende wayudo kanyo ni chenro mago mag wuoth ne obedo kod ng'ikruok kendo nengo mano mar wuoth bende ne oidho malo ka otenre kod nengo mano mamalo mag modhi e pacho kae. Kaluwore kod jotend derepe kaachiel kod weg nyamburko mago mabende wuok kono, ne gilero ni ne gikawo okang' mano mar medo nengo mag wuoth ka otenre kod nengo mano mamalo mag modhi e thurka.
Machiegni, I'm the Secretary General of Siaya PSV Union Organization, union that brings together 13 routes which operates in Siaya. Today, there was strike of our matatus in all our routes. They didn't operate, and we want to tell our customers to bear with us. We were forced to do that. We didn't do it intentionally, but because of the hike in fuel prices, is what has made us to go for that peaceful demonstration. Now we'll charge 400. Siaya Nairobi route we were charging 1,000. Now we are going to charge 1,500. Siaya Nyadorera route we were charging 150. Now we are going to charge 200. Siaya Ugunja route we were charging 150. We are going to charge 200 now. Siaya Kodiaga we were charging 200. Now we are going to charge 250. Therefore, we want to urge HEPRA to look on the common mwananchi.
Kwa majina naitwa Gabriel Otieno Osinde. Mimi ni chairman wa Siaya PSV Union. Sasa nilikuwa naomba serikali wa broad based aangalie vile anaweza kutusaidia. Tumefinyika. Hii fueli vile imeongezwa tunaumia sana. Kutoka Siaya mpaka Kisumu sasa kitambo ilikuwa 300. Sasa hizi imefika 400. Inatubidi tuongeze kulingana na vile fueli imeongezeka. Sasa tunaomba serikali waangalie vile wanaweza kutusaidia. Watu wanaumia sana.
Jina naitwa Nyaloka. Hiyo ndio jina inajulikana hapa Siaya. Nimepatikana na idara ya watu wa matatu, manake tunashirikiana pamoja. Mimi ni mwana fuel, mimi nafanya idara ya fuel. Lakini kwa yote yanayotendeka huwa mara mingi naulizwa Nyaloka, bei ya fuel inakuanga aje? Manake watu wanapitia changamoto sana, hali ya kusafiri inakuwa ni ngumu, hali ya hata kuweka chakula kwa meza inakuwa ni ngumu, na hizi stories zote zinatokezea na kutokuwa na mafuta na hiyo bei ya mafuta gali ambapo watu wengi wawezi. Manake unakuta mtu amekuja kupanda gari, ana hela ya kutosha, jinsi arudi nyumbani kutafuta senti nyingine ndio arudi asafiri, inakuwa ni balaa bin buda. So sisi tungeomba CS na tungeomba president wetu ya kuwa aangalie watu wenye wako chini, na angalie historia ya fuel, manake fuel ndio kila kitu inaendeleza nchi yetu. Kama fuel inaenda juu, maisha itakuwa juu. Na sisi watu wa ground wachache wanaoweza. Wengi ndio wako chini, lakini wachache ndio wako juu. Sasa sisi tungeomba CS na tungeomba president wetu Ruto aone changamoto yenye watu waliompenda walimpigia kura wanaopitia.
Kwa majina naitwa Calvin Odhiambo Koth. Mimi ni driver kutoka Siaya. Naendesha Siaya Matatu Union Lakini napitia kwa vitu mingi sana. Mimi naomba tu abiria watupe shilingi 400 tu Kisumu Siaya. Naomba pia CS pia Wandai kama naweza tusaidia, atusaidie story ya hii mafuta. Ni ngumu sana saizi nikisimamisha gari ya mwenyewe pale sijaenda kazi.
Yina mondo mia yenga gi kanyo janero mar Kala TV kata kamano komolo kanyo sade kabrodo kai kod weche manyien mago mag ng'end weche. Erokamano kuom kawo thuolo mari kendo rango weche maket koda magi bedo kod otieno mano majaber kendo idhi nyime rango kanyo wang' jowi mano mar Kala. Nyinga Neli Achieng' Ndine jaloko mara Bella Achieng'.